What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. This is Angelo Christmas documenting my journey to $20,000 per month as a high ticket closer. So in today's video, we're going to do a quick recap in terms of how the week and the month has been so far for me. And then we're going to get into a full call that we're going to watch, and which I feel is definitely one of the best calls that I've closed to at this point in time. So I'm really excited to watch it back again. I did a good job on that call, I feel, so I'm excited to go through it and see what I could have also done better on the call. So before we get into that, just in terms of the month so far, it's been really good. For the month, my close rate is sitting at like 35% or so, which is pretty good. And for the week, just last week, well, this week that just passed now, my close rate is 50% for the whole week, which is phenomenal. So now it's just a matter of me, putting more volume in. I have opened up my calendar more for more slots so I can take more calls, but I have been noticing that I've been getting quite a lot of no-shows, so I am working on improving that just so that I can actually take more calls now, because ultimately I have a proven framework that's working. I'm doing really good on the calls I am taking. It's just about now doing as much volume as possible. So again, the goal for this month is at least $10,000, which if I continue things at the pace I'm doing now, there's no reason I shouldn't hit minimum 10K this month. So that's the goal. And yeah, aside from that, let's get into the video. I think this will be a really good call to watch, so even I'm excited. So let's go.
Are you there?
Hey Nina, can you hear me now?
No.
Can't hear me. That's strange. Okay. What I'll do for you then, Nina, I'll just give you a normal.
Wait, I just turned you up. Now I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, cool. Cool. Good job, Nina. Cool. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for asking, Nina. Happy to be with you today. Before we do start, I also have to let you know the call is being recorded just for training and compliance. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good, Nina. Now, a bit of context on me. My name's Angelo, so I'm one of the metabolic advisors here at VShred. I work quite closely with Vince and the team, and today my role is quite simple, right? Just to hear your fitness goals, what you've tried in the past, what you've been struggling with, and also just to make sure you're going down the right path for success at VShred as well. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool. And I know I might have mentioned it already, Nina, but just as a time check, because usually the calls do overrun for like 45 minutes. So would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Now, the other reason as well for the call, Nina, is because you did the metabolic quiz. Now, with the quiz, it's not blood work by any means, so it's not 100% accurate, but it
Yeah.
does typically give us like a 90 to 95% accuracy in terms of what's happening with your metabolism. So, usually someone in your age group would score around a 7 out of 10 on the quiz, but the result we got back for you did come back a bit on the lower end at a 4 out of 10. Okay. Now, not the end of the world. You're not going to die, right? It just means that you might have a bit of a harder time when it comes to losing weight and keeping it off long term as well. So does that come as a surprise to you at all, Nina?
No.
No surprise. Okay, got you. Well, we can definitely dive into that as well in a second. But just before we do, since I only have ranges on my screen, can I please get your age, your height, and your body weight, please, Nina?
So just for anyone that's new to the channel, I sell fitness, so this is a fitness sales call. I'm basically helping her achieve her weight loss goals and fitness goals, and she's already purchased a cheap program, like a do-it-yourself program, which is like somewhere between like $59 or something like that. And after purchasing that program, they basically come on the call with me or other closers, and then we basically understand their problems in a lot more detail and see if it makes sense for them to get personalized help where they can actually work with a coach to ensure that they achieve their goals, as opposed to trying on their own and failing like they have been in the past. So that's pretty much what this call is about. However, she doesn't know that. She thinks she just purchased the program and that's what's going to help her solve her problems. And she thinks this is just like an information call where she's coming to learn more about her metabolism, right? So that's how the calls are framed. And it's actually, it's known as a tripwire sales call, meaning they have no idea it's a sales call. So just for some context, and now we can get back into the call and enjoy.
I am 5 feet tall. I'm just turned 69. And I don't really know. The last time I was weighed, I was 170 pounds.
About 170. And how long ago was that when you weighed?
About a month.
Okay. And you'd say you're probably still in around that range?
I never weigh myself, so yes, probably.
Okay, cool. No problem. And I guess what are you looking to achieve specifically working with us at VShred then?
Two things. I would like to reduce body weight, and I just want to feel better. You know, I feel like I have just inflammation, and I have two really, really bad knees, one that's been replaced and the other one that's waiting for that, which I really don't want to do. And so that really limits my ability to do things like in the daily workouts. Getting up and off the floor is just really hard.
Gotcha.
And, you know, kind of wastes time and stuff like that. Anyway, I've sort of managed to work around that a little bit, but
You can obviously improve that as well. Okay.
well, I don't know if we can improve my knees. I don't think we can, but I certainly would like to improve how much they hurt by gaining muscle and, you know, letting my muscle take on more of the work.
At this part of the call, it's more so just understanding what her goal is, you know, when was she last there, and what's the reason she hasn't been there yet, and basically finding out what's holding her back from getting there without making excuses and stuff like that. So that's this part of the call, the beginning.
Rather than the joint. And
Absolutely. And as you drop the weight as well, you get more to like a more comfortable
Yeah.
weight that will naturally improve it as well.
yeah.
You know, so I guess where would you love to be with your weight long term? What's your long term goal?
I don't really know the answer to that, but if I could drop 30 pounds, that'd be amazing.
Okay, 30 pounds. Got you. Now, I guess a better way to sort of put it for you, Nina, in your adult life, when was the last time you looked and felt your best? Like what weight was that at? Because anything is possible, right? We just want to make sure we're getting you where you really would love to be.
Great question. So I was probably in my late 40s or early 50s, and I was probably about 120 pounds, and menopause hit, and
I see. Obviously, you got a bit harder from there. So you'd say 120. If you could snap your fingers, you want to be at 120 again.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sounds good. Well, just
So nice that I dug deeper into her actual goal, because she was selling herself short at first. She said that she would love to lose 30 pounds. If she would be able to, that would be amazing. So that would have put her at 140 pounds. However, as you see, I uncovered that her real goal is actually 120. So that's an extra 20 pounds of leverage that I've now got on the call to use, which means that I can build an even bigger gap from where she is now and where she wants to be.
definitely possible. So that would be about like 50 pounds or so we got to lose. And remind me again, when was the last time that you were down at 120?
Late 40s, early 50s.
Late 40s, early 50s. So that would have been about like at least 20 years ago or so.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
I mean,
So,
I didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden I was blossomed into this porker. You know, it took some time to
yeah,
get that
it's
way,
kind
but I didn't have any control over it anymore. You know, I'm not a big eater. I'm not a big drinker. I don't do that kind of stuff. And yet,
got you.
So as you can see, she hasn't yet taken ownership of the problem. She's mentioned menopause. She's mentioned she doesn't have any control over it. So she's making a lot of excuses, as people typically do, especially in fitness. So now what I'm going to basically do is understand what's the actual problem and what's holding her back from a personal level.
I guess over the past 20 years then for you, Nina, like what sort of things have you tried to lose the weight?
many things, you know, keto, anything low carb, which tends to work out well for me until recently. One of the things that makes me feel the best is intermittent fasting. You know, it helps me with the inflammation, which I think I'm just fighting all the time. And on intermittent fasting, I have dropped almost 30 pounds. I don't know why I can't do it anymore, but I can't. It just doesn't have the same effect. So I'm really disappointed.
Okay, got you. No, I know it can be a challenge. So obviously you've quite a few
She has been laughing a couple of times, but I haven't yet called it out. I was waiting until it gets more so towards the most serious part of the call, where we're talking about pain and how it's affecting her before I address it. But as you can see, my face is straight. Even though she's laughing, I'm not like giving in to her laugh and like smiling or laughing back, because if I do that, she's not going to take the call seriously. However, I should have probably addressed it earlier so that I could have got the frame back quicker as opposed to waiting. But I will do that. I think I do it like twice in this call. So
different things as well. And I guess over the past like 20 years in total, how many attempts would you say you've made to try and lose the weight, even if it was just for a few days or not like 100% committed, but just in
Dozens.
dozens, you'd say? Got you.
Yeah.
Like when you say like dozens, how many dozens, like would you say?
Well, let's just go on the low end and say 2.
Okay, so at least like probably once a year then, which would be like 20 times then, you're saying?
At least, yeah.
Okay, got you. Now, over all these different attempts, like what would be like the results you would typically see, like when you would actually try and, when you start to lose weight, how much would you normally tend to lose?
Not much. I don't know, maybe 10 pounds. Was never enough to really convince me it was working. Truly, once menopause hit, everything just went to pot.
Yeah, I see. And I definitely understand. That can make it a lot more challenging, but doesn't make it impossible, because we've helped like many women also that have gone through menopause, still lose a lot of weight as well. But I guess, would 10 pounds be the most you've ever lost over the past 20 years, or did you ever lose more than that as well?
No, I lost 27 pounds when I first started intermittent fasting.
Okay. So you lost about 27. Got you.
Yeah.
So I guess normally, like when you would lose the weight, then, like what would typically happen at that point that would stop you from losing more weight and then cause you to end up gaining the weight back?
Intermittent fasting is wonderful, and it's really hard. And so mixing my professional life and my social life, I'm a college professor. I don't work in the summer. So over the summer, it's easy to do. Once the world begins again, it's much harder because of social things.
So now we're getting more towards the evidence and figuring out what the bottleneck is for her. As she said, she has an easier time in the summer when life is good and she's not stressed with work, but it gets harder for her when she's working, which means that the problem isn't that it wasn't working, it's that she probably can't stay consistent whenever she's busy with work and back at college and being a professor. So that's the truth. So I'm going to get to that in a second, but that's where my head's at this point of the call.
It's much harder to keep to that restrictive time period. And
Gotcha. So you'd say a bit of like inconsistency, basically, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. And I appreciate the transparency as well with that. Would you say that's probably the biggest reason now you haven't actually, lost the weight, that like inconsistency?
I would say that's one of the biggest reasons. Yes. That, and my body just doesn't seem to care what I eat or don't eat anymore. Everything just is like, ooh, fat.
Got you. Well,
So I tried to get her to take ownership and accept my worldview that the problem is she's inconsistent and that's why she's unsuccessful. But as you can see, she's still making excuses and externalizing that her body is this way and that way. So now I'm still gonna have to reframe her properly until she takes ownership and realizes that the problem is her, not menopause, not her body, not the fact that she doesn't work in summer. You know, it's her. She's the problem, in a good way, of course. So
Wait,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I was just gonna say, like, obviously, you know, because when it comes to being consistent, that's ultimately gonna be the make or break when it comes to like achieving like a fitness goal like this, right? You know,
Sure.
so I guess in terms of that consistency, I know you mentioned it gets hard like when you go back to like the professional life, but do you feel like there is a world out there that does exist for you where even with those things happening, you can be consistent and lose the weight as well?
I hope so.
You hope so? What makes you say you hope so?
Well, you know, as long as I continue to teach, you know, life is going to be different in the summer than it is the rest of the year.
Mhm.
And so, you know, so it just points to this is it all in my head, you know, what am I willing to do and what am I willing not to
Mm.
do and or not
Exactly.
willing to do. And
For sure, because
that's
ultimately it will come down to like your own commitment to your goals, you know. So, because I guess think of it like this, Nina. Do you feel like there are other people out there that are in a similar situation to you, have the same sort of lifestyle, but can still achieve the same goals you want to achieve? Do you feel like those people do exist?
I'm sure they do.
Got you. And I guess knowing it is possible, then Nina,
that basically eliminated her excuse now. So I'm getting her to accept that now as well.
what do you feel like is the difference between the people that can still achieve it versus the people that haven't yet achieved it?
Wish I could answer that question. I would do
If
what they do if I knew what they were doing.
if you were to think of it, what do you feel would be the difference between those people, though?
Maybe they're more committed than I am. Maybe they're
Yeah.
better at it than I am. Maybe I don't have any idea.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily that they're better than you or they maybe know more stuff than you. It's
They
ultimately
may.
because it would be the first one you said, right? They're more committed. That's why they stay consistent all year round because that's what it ultimately would come down to, right, Nina? So does that make sense? Would you agree with that?
Oh, sure.
Got you. Cool. So knowing that that inconsistency has been the biggest challenge for you, Nina, do you feel like if you continue to be inconsistent, you'd ever have a good shot of getting back to 120 again?
No.
Got you. And I guess for you then, Nina, like what do you feel like that inconsistency has costed you over these past 20 years in terms of your health and your fitness?
Everything. It's cost me my health and my fitness. Now, I happen to be a really healthy, overweight person. You know, I don't have high blood pressure. I'm not diabetic. I, you know, am a very active human being. I'm in good physical shape for some reason, but I think that's probably going to come to an end at some
Mm.
point, and I'd like to not have that happen.
Yeah, I see. And when you say like it's costed you everything, what makes you say that then, Nina? How has it costed you everything?
It, it's cost me my ability to be slimmer. It's cost me my ability to look in the mirror. You know, you know, if we're just talking about the physical and emotional aspects of being out of shape, then over the last 20 years, I have certainly lost respect for my ability to be in shape.
Mm. I see. Got you. And I guess since that's only over these past 20 years, Nina, like what do you feel like it would continue to cost you, you know, in the future if nothing were to change?
I think at some point my health is going to go south, and I want to be around to be somebody's grandmother.
Yeah. For sure. And just be able to be that person for your future grandkids. I see.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, knowing that's ultimately what it's been costing you, Nina, what it could continue to cost you later down the road, would you say you are now willing and committed to being consistent so you can get back to 120 now?
That is what I'm doing here.
For sure. And I appreciate.
She's still not very certain in her ability to achieve the goal, right? Every time I ask her about her commitment, she says she hopes so, or even now, she didn't give me a solid yes. So there's still a lot of doubts in her mind in how confident and how sure she is that she can even achieve this goal. So I believe at this part of the call, I do address that as well.
You being here, it obviously shows you are wanting to, try.
Because my goal is to get her aligned before we get to the end of the call when there's money involved. I need to have her not have any limiting beliefs, know that she's the problem so that she can fix it, know that she can achieve the goal and not be fearful and not be scared that she'll fail, right? I need to get rid of all that before I actually get to the end of the call so that it's easier for me to close her, because we did all the hard work before we got to the end of the call.
And make the change, but more so what's going to be more important is the decisions and actions you take after this call that will determine the results you get.
Sure.
So would you say you are now ready to commit to being consistent though?
Yeah.
You sure?
Listen, I'm full of good intentions.
Because ultimately it comes down to your commitment, right, Nina? And ultimately you the one.
See, she's still very, although she said yeah, I could hear it wasn't like a certain yes. She's still unsure. That's why I asked her if she's sure, and now I'm still trying to handle her fear.
One that's in control on whether or not you want to be consistent. And I'm not here to tell you it's going to be easy and sunshines and rainbows, right? But the way I sort of got it, the way I look at it is like, it's going to be hard either way, right? It can either be hard where you take the hard choice and you be consistent so you can get to where you want to go, or you take the other option, which is also going to be hard, of not being consistent and living the rest of your life in a body you're not actually happy with. So what do you feel would be harder for you?
Living in a body I'm not happy with, or in a body that doesn't serve me well.
For sure.
No, I actually don't really care about being skinny. I care about being healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And that's obviously the health side of things. So since for you then, Nina, like as we mentioned, it's been 20 years now, right? What would you say makes it really important for you now that you are ready to commit to being consistent so you can get to 120 again? Like, why now would you say that's really important for you?
Now we're going to get more into emotions and how this extra weight is affecting her life and how it's actually having a negative impact on her.
I think it's really because I think there's a chance that I could become a grandmother sooner rather than later. And I want to be really good at that job.
Awesome. So you feel like you could actually start to be a grandmother in the near future?
It's possible.
Okay, awesome. That's lovely. I hear you. And the grandkids can always be a huge motivation. So that's good to hear that you want to, be the best you can be, not just for yourself, but also for them. And I guess that's obviously more so, later down the road when it does happen, Nina, but more so like just for yourself and personally, what would you say is the biggest reason right now in your current situation that the extra weight is bothering you the most?
Pain. Which I'm sure the weight has something to do with that.
Which pain are you referring to?
My legs just hurt 24/7. And I don't know that, even if I, was a 98-pounder, I'm not sure that my legs wouldn't hurt. I just think they would hurt less if I wasn't carrying so much.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely would improve. Obviously, it might not be gone completely because, depending on the situation, but it would improve a lot. So I guess that knee pain for you, Nina, like when did you start noticing it like hurt you to this level? Like how long have you been struggling with it?
Since I was 17.
Oh, really? So for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. It's not going to get better. I mean, it could get better, but it's not going to ever be over. You know, I just have
Okay.
structurally unsound joints.
At this point, I realized that that pain point wasn't worth me digging deep on, because she's been struggling with that before she was overweight. So I'm gonna move on to a different pain point.
Okay, I see. So it's been like kind of like a lifelong thing. I thought it
Yeah.
was more so
Yeah.
because of the weight as well, but okay. And I guess in terms of the weight itself, like aside from the knee pain, I know you mentioned like, you want to feel better, look better, but how would you say that this extra weight is sort of having an effect on how you feel and how you look? Like how is that sort of like hindering you?
Well, it takes up a lot of space in my brain.
Really?
Yeah. And, I've put a lot of effort into reversing that. I just don't find a lot of success. And imagine what I could do if my brain wasn't constantly thinking about that. Also, I just don't believe that it's right for me to be so concerned about myself. That's just not a good way to be in the world. And I have things to be concerned about, so I should do my due diligence about that. But I'd like to be free of that so I could go out into the world and be a more useful human.
I see. And I guess when you say you're taking up like a lot of your brain power and like and being more useful, like how specifically do you feel like this extra weight is having an effect on you where it makes you feel like you're not as useful as you could be? Like how are you noticing that?
I don't have the stamina that I would like to have. Um, this might be funny and a little bit out of the norm, but I think it takes away from my ability to be creative and to use whatever talents I have. I spend a good deal of time feeling ashamed.
Very deep. At this point, it got like really deep, because shame is like one of the worst emotions you could feel as a human. And if you notice, she did laugh right before mentioning that. So at this point, I'll call out the laugh, and I'm gonna take it even deeper with her to really, really let her sit in the pain of her situation, so that she can actually use that to help her change. As you can see, like based on her facial expression, she's already feeling the pain. She's thinking about how it's really making her feel ashamed. So now I'm gonna twist the knife.
I see. That's a pretty deep thing to feel as well, Nina. So I guess how long would you say you've really noticed that you have been finding yourself like feeling ashamed of the situation and what it's led to?
I missed that laugh on the call. I thought I called it out, but I missed it. I should have definitely called it out, especially now that we're in the emotions and the deep pain part of the call. So that's definitely something I should have done there.
Way too long. My daughter was born when I was 40, and getting back in shape after that was a monumental task, which I achieved. But it also worked then. That I can't go back and do those same things now. They just don't work. Neither can I really afford to do those things again, or at this point in my world. But really, menopause kicked in and I just lost all control.
I see. And I guess you feeling, like you mentioned, ashamed, Nina, like how would you say that sort of showing up like in other areas of your life?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Maybe I have resistance to doing some of the social things that, I've done all my life.
And I guess what sort of like specific scenarios or situations come to mind where you found yourself, avoiding those situations where maybe deep down inside you wanted to go, but you just didn't want like up for it. Like when did it like frustrate you the most? When does that usually happening?
I feel like it's a constant thing. I don't think there's a specific day or time or event in which that feeling overtakes me. It overtakes me all the time.
Really?
Um,
When was the last time you found that sort of thing happened though? Where you avoided like certain social situations because of this challenge you've been facing?
well, I'll tell you, I just had my 50th high school reunion. That was a tough go on me emotionally. I did it. I didn't want to.
Mm.
So now I'm getting her to actively picture scenarios in her mind that she experienced so that she can relive those moments and obviously be reminded of how she felt in those moments and how it's been affecting her.
I see. Okay. Well, it's good that you obviously overcame that, right, Nina? But obviously you mentioned you didn't want to. So like in that moment when you were actually out.
Still not calling out the laugh. I remember doing it twice in this call, but I thought by now I would have done it the first time, but I haven't. Not good. Noted for the future calls.
Out there, with all your peers, like for you, like what is really going through your head, like in that situation?
I'm embarrassed.
Mm.
I have a bubbly, sparkly personality, which has gotten me through a great deal of life. And I still have that personality. But now I'm just sort of embarrassed to show up. And
I guess for you, Nina, like who else do you feel like that's also affecting in your life aside from like yourself?
everybody. That sounds so immodest to say that. But, if I am feeling resistant to being social, that affects my child, that affects my family, that affects my students, it affects my friends. Not that they need me so desperately to fill their voids, but it is a relationship blocker.
I see. And I guess for you then, Nina, like, what's that really been like for you, over these past years, knowing that, because of that inconsistency, it's got you in this position where, you find yourself always avoiding these social situations. And even when you do go out, you're like embarrassed about how you feel or how you look. And like you said, it's possibly blocking certain relationships in your life. Like, what's all this really been like for you over these past, years?
What? I don't feel like a very useful or contributing member of my community.
Mm.
And I think that is not the way to live a good life.
I see. And I guess for you then, like, why would you say that sort of, Grant, you mentioned there that you don't feel as useful as a part of your community? Like, why does that bother you particularly?
Because, well, things are just harder to do when you're, quirky. And, I live in a little small town and everybody contributes to the workings of the town, and I resist that because I don't exactly know what I'm going to be asked to do, or am I going to have the stamina to do it, or am I going to have the physical strength to do it, or am I, you know.
I see. And I noticed you kind of like laughed a little bit there, Nina, but if
Finally. Took me long enough, but now we address it.
you were to think of it, do you feel like the fact that you want to do that, but because of how you're feeling and the challenges you're facing, you find yourself avoiding doing that? Do you feel like that is something to laugh about, though?
No, it's very sad.
Yeah, I see. So for you, Nina, like how much longer do you feel like you want to let that inconsistency have you in that position where you can't actually be the true person you want to be deep down inside? How
I
much
don't
longer?
want it to go any longer.
Okay, that's good to hear, Nina. So for you then, Nina, right, when I actually do put you in a position,
I should have used her words there. And instead of saying being the true person you want to be, because she never say that, I should have probably said something along the lines of, how much longer do you want to let that inconsistency have you in a position where you constantly feel ashamed, embarrassed, and you don't actually feel like a useful person in your community? That would have hit a lot deeper, because she used all those words, and those emotions are stronger than what I used. So that would have been much better to say there. Now we're done with the deep pain emotions part of the call. Now we're speaking all about when she does actually hit the goal, how is her life going to change, what's that going to look like, and getting her to feel the future of her living in that reality.
where you're finally back at 120 again, right? You know you can stay there long term again, right? What do you feel like that's truly going to do for you personally after not being there for 20 years now?
Excuse me.
I think it would represent a kind of freedom I haven't felt in a long time.
How so do you mean? Like when you say like freedom, how do you feel like that would show up in your life?
Free to do the things that I should do, the things that I want to do, freedom to be needed and useful to people that need me for this reason or that reason.
For sure. And like you mentioned, just being more useful, like you say. And what sort of things are you like most looking forward to being able to do or be a part of when you do live in that reality again?
Well, the grandmother thing. Now, I'm in preparation for being a grandmother. I'm not a grandmother. But I really, if there was ever a time that I wanted to be in condition to be useful and available, that would be it.
For sure. And obviously now you mentioned you could be a grandmother soon. So, when you actually do, you do what it takes to actually achieve your goal, not just for you, but, for your family, for your future grandkids, Nina, what do you feel like that's going to be like for you when they start growing up and you know that you can show up as good as you want to for them as well? Like, what do you feel like that's going to feel like for you?
Complete delight.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it's going to mean the world to you because I can tell how, important it is to you as well. So would you say you are now ready to become that person, Nina?
I think I am.
Okay, cool. And do you also believe it's possible? Because that's also important as well.
So that's a little harder to believe.
So at this point, I'm also testing again to see if there's still any fear. And as you can see, there is still fear. So she doesn't yet believe she can actually achieve it. So now I'm going to try to handle the fear before we move on.
I have a lot of evidence that it's not possible. But I hope.
For sure. And obviously, it makes it a bit harder to believe that, right? Since obviously the evidence says otherwise over your past, 20 years. However, beliefs are very powerful, what we believe determines our behaviors and that determines the results we get in life, right? So yes, it is hard to envision that reality and believing it's possible, but for you, Nina, like we mentioned already on the call, like it wasn't necessarily that the things you were doing weren't working. It was more so that the problem was that consistency, right? So for you, as long as you do be consistent this time and you actually, remind yourself of why you're doing this. And, I'm not going to say it's going to get hard. I mean, it's going to be easy, but in those moments when life gets busy and maybe you find yourself starting to slip up, can you commit to me that you're going to remind yourself of, why you're doing this and use that fuel to push you forward and keep you going forward? Remind yourself that you're doing this for your future grandkids and for you to be that
Oh,
useful
sure.
person you want to do, right?
Sure.
So if you are willing to do that and actually commit this time around and go all the way, do you feel like there's any reason in the world you can't achieve the goal though?
Um, I know that you want me to say no. I don't believe there's any reason I can't achieve the goal. But I want to be clear to you about what my goal is. And that is improvement. You keep saying when I weigh 120. Well, I don't actually believe that's ever going to happen. And I don't care if that happens. I care if I get to a point where I can be the sort of person that we've talked about that I want to be. And I don't have any idea what the scale will say at that point.
Yeah, of course. And the number is not entirely important, right, Nina? So I don't even want you to think about the number. I was just more so asking you about, you achieving your goals in terms of, improving your health, improving your health, your confidence, being more useful, these sort of things. And even if that means maybe at 140 or 150 you feel that way, great, right? But that's
Yeah,
what more so I was
correct.
asking if you believe that's possible for you to achieve that goal.
Yeah. And another.
So at this point of the call, I could have challenged her on achieving the goal of 120 because she blatantly said she don't believe that's possible at all, of getting down to 120. However, since I felt because it was like a case for her where it wasn't always just about the weight, it's more so about how she can be more useful, being there for a grandkid. I felt it was fine not to challenge her on that because, her getting probably to 140, as long as she has the energy, she has the stamina, that would be fine. So whether that's at 140 or at 120, that's why I didn't challenge on her ability to achieve 120. I just challenged her on, does she feel she can go all the way until she is where she want to be, wherever that is on the scale. So I thought of doing that, but I just thought for like time's sake, and I felt it wouldn't make or break the call, so I didn't, but definitely could have.
Goal that I have is to develop a better lifestyle.
Of course. Yeah. Course, sure. And because ultimately, Nina, I know we can help you get there, right? There's no doubt in my mind. But if we were to,
So now we're done with the future pace. Now we're getting into consequence, which is understanding what her life may look like if she doesn't ever achieve her goal and how that could affect her.
be honest with each other, there is another side of the coin where, you don't make the right sort of changes when it comes to that consistency we spoke about. So if that were to be the case for you, Nina, and perhaps the next 20 years continue like the last have, what do you feel like that would look like for you in your life?
I don't think there would be 20 years. And that would be really sad for me. I'm not afraid to die, but I am afraid to miss out on the lives of my daughter and her prospective children. And that's, that is my ultimate goal, to be around for them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah, I hear you, Nina. And obviously no one would want that, right? And I know you said it would be sad, but
At this point, I'm addressing the laugh because that's a heavy pain point. Like she could die early, and she's laughing and saying that. So I'm addressing it here too.
I'm just curious, like, what do you feel like caused you to laugh about that fact? If that's such like, a serious thing, if you do leave this earth earlier because of this, like, what made you laugh about that?
She's very
And I don't want you to think I'm being like, picky or anything like that, but it's more so like I've learned a lot about humans and what it takes for them to change, right? So when we laugh about sort of uncomfortable situations, what that does, it tells your subconscious mind that there's less incentive to change because it doesn't see it as a big problem, right? Because we're sort of using the laughter to, not actually sit in the pain of the reality, and that avoids you to actually utilize all the emotional leverage you could be using to actually make the change. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So if it does actually get to that point, Nina, where perhaps, you aren't around for the next 20 years and your lifespan is cut short and you find yourself missing out on those moments, like you said, with your kids and with your grandkids, how do you feel like that would make you feel looking back at life knowing you could have prevented all that from happening?
Ashamed.
I see. And if that does get, obviously, when it comes to you achieving this goal, right? Like I know we can help you get there. And
For this call, I was very quick with consequence. I don't know why, but like you said, I only asked her one question, and then I asked how's it gonna feel, and I moved on. I could have got a lot more clarity and consequence as well. But at this point of the call, I had a lot of leverage, so maybe that's why I didn't go as deep as I could have, because a part of me knew that I did go very deep, and that would have been enough for her to close. So, but still a bad habit. Either way, I should always get more clarity. So, should change that on my next calls.
Never ever have to worry about you living in that reality of where things go that way, right? But ultimately, whose responsibility is it to do the work, though? For sure. And we can be there with you, right? Every single step of the way, ensuring you actually have what you need to be successful, and be there with you along that journey. But would you say you are now 100% committed to making that a reality for yourself and, and your future grandkids, like you said?
Yeah. And I think in the last 2 weeks since I started doing this, I have done a really good job, at least, of being committed. I have gotten up every morning and done the workout and done the planning of the meals and all of that kind of thing. And I don't promise that I always get the macros correct, but I always try to get the macros correct.
Okay, awesome.
And I put a lot of effort into the workout in the morning.
Awesome.
And I got up this morning, there was no workout, and so I went out for a walk, which I haven't done for months.
Nice. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that, Nina. So if that's the case, then, what I would want to do with you, right? If you are willing and open, is cover.
So at this point, the discovery is done, and I'm gonna pitch her now and tell her basically the difference between what she bought and what I'm presenting to her, and why it's gonna help her and why it's the best option. And then from there, we're gonna get into objections, which I feel was a very good performance from me in terms of how I handled her objections. Because as you can see, there's still an hour left to go, so I was in the pocket for a while. So we're gonna watch this. So let me skip the pitch, and then we'll get to the close
as well. And you can
question I would have about interrupt you.
No, that's okay. At that point, which you're never gonna know them and give you back the happiness you lose up for a month now with those ones, Nina. You never like all at once, you mean? You never ever tie down to them the financing options, the happiness you deserve for the rest of your life. Now, aside from those 6 months, Nina, we're not just gonna leave you to hang out, lose up for our monthly financing options, give back the happiness you deserve for the rest of your life. Now, aside from those 6 months, Nina, we're not just going to leave you to hang out to dry after that, okay? We're still going to have an additional 6 months of what we call our aftercare phase, which is where you'll have access to all our meal plans and all our workout videos, so you can still utilize that even once you're done with the coach. So it's kind of like 12 months in total. Just the first 6 months will be working with the coach. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, Cool. Now we do have some packages that can run very high, Nina. I'm talking like, $17,000, right? But luckily for you, you're not in that boat. Okay, yours is nowhere near that. Okay, so for this one, for the full year, with the full year, 6 months with the coach, 6 months aftercare to help you get back to your goals and feel your best again, that would just be $3,000. Okay, now what I will say, most people don't pay that all up front, Nina. Some people do put on a card and get the points, but what our most successful clients usually do is opt for a monthly financing option. So that way it allows you to spread out the payments and still get the result without breaking the bank. So if you do go that way, you could get it down to as low as between 120 to 150 bucks a month or so, depending which option you actually go with. So I guess for you, Nina, would you be leaning more towards like the all-in-one, or would you prefer like a monthly, would you say?
So now we've pitched out, we've dropped the price of $3,000. Now it's time to be a jujitsu, do Aikido, and overcome all her objections. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I don't know. I'm not into monthly things too much, but I would just have to consider the options.
Got you. Okay. I mean, with the monthly one, I'm also not one for like monthly payments as well, so I hear you. But what I also want you to know with those ones, Nina, you never ever tie down to them. So for example, even if you do like spread it over 6 months or 12 months, if you want to, at any point, if you want to or are able to, you can also settle the whole payment without any penalties or anything like that. So it's not like you'd be tied down to those monthly options. So it ultimately would just come down to, what your budget looks like and what makes most sense for you, financially as well. So which do you feel you'd be, I guess, more leaning towards for you?
I would prefer to just pay for something like that.
Like all at once, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, you'd prefer all at once. And just for your own sort of clarity as well, Nina, if you maybe against monthly payments because of like interest or anything like that, if you're spreading out over like 3 or 6 months, there would be no interest as well. So if that helps you, maybe that way you don't have to outlay as much money, you can still spread it out without paying any extra on top as well. But if you rather just pay it all at once, that's also okay. It just depends, like whatever you prefer, really. So I just wanted to let you know that option as well, though, if you rather consider that. But yeah, would you prefer to just do it all at once then, would you say?
That would be my first option.
Okay, that would be your first option. Got you. I mean, if that's the case, then, what we would normally do then, we'd obviously, process that investment and we'll get you in touch. Your coach will be in touch with you within the next 48 hours and then get you on track to getting back to,
I could see she's a bit hesitant here, but since she said that's her first option, I just went for the close either way. But as you can see, based on the time left, she rebutted. So
looking and feeling your best again and being your best self again. So how do you feel about that, Nina?
Well, the sooner the quicker, right? I mean,
of course.
What I want to know is, do I have to make this decision right now on the phone with you?
I mean, you don't have to, but like you said, the sooner the better. So what's coming up for you that makes you...
Well, so I am mostly retired. I continue to be an adjunct professor, which is not a way to make money. So I just have to really look at my budget, and I just need to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, Lina. And look, obviously, I understand the investment is a big step. And, I'm never going to be the guy that's going to put you in a position where, you can't afford to pay for any other bills or take food off the table, basically, Nina. So if that's the case where, is it a case that you do have the full investment, maybe you just have a bit of uncertainty?
One big mistake I realized here before I started objection handling is that I didn't get her tied down that if she feels the program can work for her or not. I don't know why I didn't do that. I always do that. But basically I was supposed to ask her, okay, so aside from the investment, when it comes to like the program itself, do you actually believe this can help you get where you want to go? Yes. Or if she says no, understand why not, and then also understand why does she feel it can help her, so that I get a stronger buy-in from her, so that she can also like sell herself on the program a bit more. So I should have done that before doing all this, which would have gave me a lot more leverage to objection handle, which was a big mistake.
Or is it a case maybe you only have some of the investment and we got to maybe figure out the logistics together? Or is it a case that you have none of the investment now and we got a rubber bank together?
I've never done that. No, it is the case that if I decided that this was the thing that I wanted to spend $3,000 on, I would be able to spend $3,000 on it. But I also have to buy a car. So I had a lifetime of being careful with money, and this is no different to me. It's not no for me. It's just I want to look at my picture and what I think my picture is going to be like and make the best decision. I'm very interested in doing this. Please don't mistake me. It's just the nuts and bolts that I want to make sure I have all the right screwdrivers and pliers and wrenches and things.
Of course. No, I get you. And like I said, that is obviously, the investment is a big step, right? But if it's just a case of you figuring out the logistics and like how much you actually can afford to put towards this, what I would normally recommend in this case, Nina, because like the worst thing we can do, is nothing at all, right? So instead of like considering the full investment, like if you're not sure if you can do that, how about we at least take a look and see, what those monthly options would be like for you. That way you can be a bit more manageable in terms of the monthly payments. And then whenever you can, like maybe you do work out the finances, maybe you do have some extra money, you want to settle the whole thing, you can always do that as well whenever you want to. So you wouldn't be like tied down to those monthly options. And if you do go the monthly option, there's no investment even due today. The first payment will only come out in 30 days from now, but that way we can still get you set up with a coach in the next 48 hours. So at least that way, you're putting yourself in the best position to actually, achieve your goal. So how would you feel about that instead of, trying to figure out how to pay it all at once, would you say?
Well,
at this point I'm testing the waters to see, like, because she has the full investment, but she has a car that she needs to buy. Sounds like she don't make that much money. She's semi-retired, so I'm trying to get her more towards doing it monthly, because on my offer they can make monthly payments, which is a lot more manageable. So I'm trying to see how she reacts to that.
I'm sorry, I'm a cheeky person, and my immediate response is cheeky. So I'm just trying to think of a non-cheeky way to say what I want to say.
You can be as honest as you can with me, Look, even if it's a case where you hate me, you don't want to do this, and you don't know how to tell me, you can tell me, it's okay. But the more honest you are with me, the better I can try help you. So you can be honest.
My father would be really proud of me if I said to you, why put off to tomorrow what you can do today? So it's nice to think, I have 30 days, where I don't have to pay, but that doesn't really matter because you still have to do that in 30 days, right? So
I guess what makes you feel like your father would be proud of you if you were to not put it off for another day?
So at this point I can tell that she wants to do it. I can tell that she probably can't afford it. It's just getting her over the line. There's a bit of fear. So she mentioned something really powerful about her father would be proud of her. So I'm assuming her father's dead. So I'm trying to use that as this emotional leverage to get her to make this decision. So I'm asking her, like, what does she feel her father would think of her? Or why does she feel her father would be proud of her? if she makes this decision?
You know, he would just be happy if you're going to do something and do it.
Is he still alive, or has he?
No,
He's
he's
not
not.
alive. Okay.
Anyway, he would
Okay.
also appreciate my cheeky attitude.
Awesome. So I guess in that case, then ultimately, it comes down to you, right? And I guess from like your father's perspective, I know you might have not thought about this before, but since you obviously mentioned that to him, like aside from him being proud of you for, making that brave decision and doing this today, how do you feel like he's gonna feel looking down on you 6 months from now when you actually do conquer this goal?
Angelo, what's the name of your boss?
Well, it would be Vince, right? Because Vince is
Okay, well, so Vince, I'm talking to you now, knowing that this is being recorded. Is that Angelo is really pulling out all the stops here. He's doing a very good job.
But yeah, generally though, like aside from like the investment, because that thought just popped into my head, like, as
If there's a small cut, might be a little small cut, it's because the video stopped and I had to record this part separately. So let's continue.
a daughter to him, like obviously I don't know him, but how do you feel like he would feel looking down on you 6 months from now when you do actually, conquer this goal?
I think my father would love me no matter what I do. Well, not quite. If you and I robbed a bank together for me to do this, he wouldn't be very proud of that. But, my father's not spending a lot of time in the other world thinking about financial decisions that I make. Anyway,
Yeah.
at least I hope he's not. Anyway, he was a great guy, and I would like to make him proud.
So what do you feel like you would need to do in this situation to, make him
I
proud?
feel like I need to ask you, do I have to make this decision now, or can I have 48 hours to be a responsible consumer?
Okay.
So at this point in the call, she's still not open to like making a decision on the call. So at this point of the call, like I did try a couple times to close her, but she still wasn't like closing. So at this point I'm like, look, I had a really good discovery with this person. This extra weight is really affecting her a lot, and me giving her 48 hours is not going to help her, right? Even if she thinks it will, it's more likely she'll decide not to do it. And the chances of her achieving this goal on her own is very slim based on 20 years of failing. So by me stepping in as a leader on the call, empowering her to actually make a decision and commit to her making this brave choice is what she needs to actually change for the better. Right, so that's pretty much the frame of mind I had here, because I was like, I'm not going to let this person off the call. I know that she can afford it. I know that this will help her. I know that she needs it, and she knows that as well. It's just up to me now to be a closer and help her realize that. So let's see how I do that.
True. I mean, like I said, Nina, I'm never going to be here to force you to do anything you don't want to do, right? So, you could take 48 hours, you could take a week, you could take a month, right? But the reality of the situation, right, Nina, this has been a problem for you for the past 20 years. We know that you do want to achieve it. We know that it is going to benefit your life in multiple ways, right? So whether you think about it and do it in 48 hours, whether you do it now, it's not going to change the outcome of where you want to go, right? It's only going to delay that further, right? So for you, Nina, like what do you genuinely feel is coming up for you that makes you want to delay becoming this person we spoke about, and that you want to be deep down?
I don't want to delay it, but I don't want to be poor either. I've never been on a fixed income before, but I am now, and I need to be cautious about that.
Yeah, For sure, and that's not what I want to, Nina, right? So if that's the case and that's the only concern for you, let's come together as a team and, instead of trying to figure out ways of how not to do this or delay it, let's come together and see how we can actually make it work where it's not going to make you poor, because I don't want that, right? So when it comes to like a monthly amount, do you feel, Nina, like what do you feel is maybe a bit more realistic for you to that you can commit to if it means you actually, achieving this goal for you?
Well, I don't think $100 a month is going to make or break me.
What do you feel like that $100 amount would cause you to like miss out on if you were to add that into the monthly expenses?
Food, social life, travel, all those things retired people are supposed to do.
But it wouldn't like break the bank basically where you can't afford to cover your bills and stuff like that. I mean,
No.
okay, cool. That's good to hear then, Nina. I mean, if that's the case, then, Nina, right, ultimately, like I said, we can take a look at those options. Even if you do go ahead with that option of $100, whichever option you choose for the monthly option, there won't be any payment due today. That first one will be due in 30 days from now. And then at any point, if you do find yourself in a position
At this point, she said like $100 won't hurt her, and she wouldn't break the bank. So I'm just trying to go in for the close again.
where you want to just settle the whole thing, you can always do that. There's no like tie down, or you won't get any penalties if you do that, right? So, but what I want to just sort of bring to your sort of attention, right, Nina, the version of you that's already lost the weight, living their best life, no more misses out on no social events, is a true self again, right? Would you say you do want to become that version,
Sure.
You do. Okay. Now, that version of you, Nina, what do you feel like that version would do in this situation right here, right now?
Sorry, my sister's calling me.
Like, do you feel like they would do it knowing it's going to help them, or do you feel like they would want to, delay the decision and put it off?
So I don't think there is any reason not to use my brain to make a good decision.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what? I am built the way I am built, and that has served me well mostly. And I'm somebody who makes financial decisions with care.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, she still has the mindset that she can't actually make a decision on the spot now. She still feels she needs time to think about it and, decide whether or not she can do it before she actually decides. So at this point, even though that's what she said initially, I think I came to the realization that I need to reframe her on why that's not serving her and why it's more beneficial for her to do this today. So I believe that's what I do here.
I hear you. I understand. And I guess ultimately, has that always been like how you made decisions, like up until this point?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess, would it be fair to say then, Nina, that way of, your decision-making process hasn't necessarily served you in this area of your life when it comes to like your health and fitness?
I don't know.
I'm saying like in terms of the fact that you're not yet where you want to be, like with your health and fitness. Ultimately, that way of making decisions hasn't helped you in this aspect of your life, though. Would you agree?
No, I wouldn't agree.
What makes you not agree if you're not yet where you want to be? That's what I was asking.
Being a thoughtful person has led me to this, not led me away from it.
How so? I'm confused.
Maybe I don't know what your question is.
I guess more so like you said that you're the type of person that basically likes to take their time when they make decisions, similar to this, right? So what I was saying, that way of making decisions, you've been doing that, pretty much your whole life. But in this area of your life, when it comes to, your fitness goals, your health, would it be fair to say that way of doing things hasn't helped you in this area of your life since you're not yet where you want to be with your
No,
fitness goals?
no, I would say no.
No, as in it hasn't helped you, right?
No, as in, I think in this and all things, that is a healthy attribute for me.
For sure, in
So,
terms of
so I'm disagreeing with you, or
got
I'm
you.
disagreeing with, I think, with what you want me to say.
It's not about like what I want you to say, right, Nina? All I'm saying is that way of making decisions hasn't helped you achieve your goals up until this point in this area of your life. I don't mean in life in general, just means in like your weight loss goals and like everything we spoke about so far. Is that not
Well,
correct?
if thinking that way could make me skinny, then no, it hasn't helped me.
Got you. Because ultimately, like what I'm trying to say, Nina, is like, I just when it comes to like making like this type of decision, like, it's not a case of, like I said, as long as it does fit in your budget, like if it doesn't actually fit in your budget, Nina, I wouldn't want you to do this, right? But
So if I say, hey, listen, I want the weekend to think about this, I know that you are probably getting commission and stuff for me to sign up right now and all of that stuff, and I appreciate that. But I'm not sure what the harm is in waiting till Monday till I sit down with a pen and paper and figure it out.
figure what out you mean?
My budget.
Your budget. Okay. I guess, like I said, what do you feel like knowing that $100 or so, knowing that it already does fit in your budget, right? Because you could, like I said, that wouldn't cost you to lose anything, right? That amount could work for you. Knowing that it can work, what do you feel is the difference then between like putting it off, knowing that you can actually make it work?
Well, listen, as I said, I need to go out and buy a car in the next 45 days. There's just no question about it. I have to do that. And
I think
go
okay,
ahead.
you go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, that is going to be something that is going to be a monthly payment for me. And not to mention the insurance that's going to go along with that and all of that kind of stuff. So I just want to have, as I said, I want my nuts and bolts to be solid.
That makes sense, Nina. I think what would be best in this case for us to do then, Nina, I think it'll make you feel a lot better as well. Because I think we can both agree, right? The worst thing we can do.
At this point, I'm like, okay, I couldn't get out of a way to commit to that amount, so I just tried to downsell it to a cheaper program. So that's what we're doing here.
Is nothing at all. So instead of jumping into like the 6-month option I told you about, that would obviously be the best one for you. That's why I recommended it. However, since that amount is, not really something you're comfortable right now, especially with the car coming up, the car payments and whatnot, let's at least get you started with the most important 3 months. Okay, that's going to be the first 3 months. You'll get everything I've mentioned so far with the coach. The only difference is that you'll have 3 months with the coach instead of 6 months. Right. And with that one, instead of 3,000, it would make it $2,000. And if you do spread out the payments for that one, you can get it down to as low as even somewhere between 60 to $70 a month. So a lot more budget friendly. But I guess, how do you feel more so about that one instead of like that's the 6-month option? Because you do always have. Okay, because you do always have the option after the 3 months. If you want to extend, you can also do that if you want to. But if not, you can also continue on your own. At least that way, though, you're getting started with something that's actually going to help you, and it's the amount is low as well, so it's not going to stress you out too much financially. But I guess, how do you feel more so about that one when it comes to fitting that in the budget?
Certainly more comfortable.
More comfortable. Would you prefer that instead of like doing the 6 months all at once then?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. And is that what you would want to do then,
you're good at this, Angelo. Uh,
What do you,
yeah,
what do you feel I'm good at?
you're good at not letting me get off this call without spending any money.
Okay. And if that
I
is true, right?
recognize that is your goal.
Okay, let me give you a better perspective though, right, Nina? If that is true, right? That's a byproduct of me helping you ultimately, right? And that's what I'll give you a story about me, right? Like a big
At this point, she was, because of what she said, like, my goal is to just get her to spend money. And she did mention commission earlier. I thought it would be helpful to share like a story about me as to why I'm doing this, why I do this, why I do this job. And I made up the story. It's not a real story, but I just felt it would help her be more comfortable with making the decision as well, because she'll see it as if I'm coming from a place that I genuinely do want to help her, and not just want to take her money, which is the truth. So that's what I did next.
part of why I do this is because, my grandfather was someone that, also, up for most of his life, he never really took care of his health and his fitness. And it got to a point where he ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Right. And that's a big reason why I do this, to help people, not to say that's going to happen to you, but just to help people, also realize that it's not just about spending some money or losing some weight. It's a life-changing transformation that you're going to go through, and me being a part of that is why I do this, right? So that's ultimately the reason why I'm okay with spending extra time with you, because whether you pay 3,000 or $1, it doesn't matter to me, right? What I care about is you actually achieving your goals. And I know, based on like my experience here, by me letting you off the call without helping you as best as I can, it's not serving you as best as you need, because one, you're delaying the decision, you're delaying you achieving your goals, and two, there's a likelihood that you might decide not to do it, right? And I can't control that at that point. But if me helping you means I'm good at making you spend money, then I'm okay with that compliment, because I want to see the best for you, right? And I want you to be the best you can be, right? So ultimately, it comes down to you, Nina. So how do you want to proceed?
Well, if I was to say yes to the 3-month option, I have some questions.
Sure.
Um,
At this point, we're making progress now, because she's asking like buyer questions.
when does that begin? When does the program begin? How often do you have access to your coach? How expensive are the meals? And do I need any equipment for exercising?
Okay, so just to recap, to make sure I didn't miss that, because that was a lot at once. So it was
Hey, listen, I'm a teacher. I ask a lot of questions.
cool. So it was how often you have access to your coach, how expensive are the meals, and what equipment you would need, and also when the program begins. Was that all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So for the first one, then when the program would begin, that just depends on when you want to actually start. So if you want to enjoy your weekend but make the start dates on Monday, that's okay. We can still process like the investment together today, and then you just let me know what your start date what you want the start date to be, whether that's on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday, just completely up to you. Okay. And then in terms of access to the coach, it's basically 24/7 access to the coach, because you can message them, you can voice note them whenever you want, right? If ever you run into any challenges, maybe your schedule at work changes, you want to make some adjustments to the meal plan, it's not like there's a certain time where you can only reach out to them. You always have access to them. You can message them whenever. Now, obviously, they might not respond on the same minute every time, but you will obviously have that access to them and they'll get back to you, as quick as they can on the same day, of course, right? And then for the meals, that's why I said everything is tailored to you, right? So it's not a case of we're gonna make you spend double what you're currently spending on groceries. Like if you really want to have a budget for groceries, you even let us know about that, and then we take everything into account to make sure it's actually fitting into your lifestyle, and we're not making it harder for you, right? So, like I said, with the meals, we'll first understand what you like, what you don't like, what's the budget like, how much time you have to prepare food, and then we'll actually set it out for you, right? So it's not a case where you would need to spend more than you currently are spending, right? And then for the equipment, you don't need any equipment. If you have equipment at home, that's great. You can even send a picture to your coach, and then we can help structure the workout around what you have. But even if you don't have equipment, it's not like you would need to go to the gym or buy equipment. We can just give
Yeah.
you like body weight workouts you could do that are like nice, light, and easy for you. So does all that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
I did have one. I thought of one. I can't remember what it is.
Such a naughty face.
I can't remember what it is.
Cool, no problem. Well, if
A
along the way,
beautiful day here, and I'm being very distracted by all the sunshine.
yeah, I noticed the sunshine caught your attention there. Cool. Awesome. Well, ultimately, like I said, it's up to you, like what you want to do. I'm never going to be the one to force you, but like I said, I'm here to help you and guide you. And, based on everything you've told me so far, I think we can both agree like this will definitely help you and it's going to change your life, right? So ultimately, it's your decision on whether or not, you want to actually make that commitment to yourself. And you making that decision is the first step to you actually, changing your life for the better. So are you ready to do that?
Vince, this is for you. I'm saying yes to Angelo. Give him a raise.
Cool, awesome stuff. And then look, you're not just saying yes to me. Firstly, I'm proud of you for making that decision, but you're also saying yes to yourself, to your family, and those grandkids that are going to come soon, right? So I want you to remember that. So I'm really proud of you, Nina. How do you feel?
I'm okay. I feel a little skeptical and a little happy.
A little skeptical and a little happy. Okay, I mean, that's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know you from Pete, right? And although
Well,
I certainly have enjoyed what V-Shred has provided me so far, and so I have some reason to think that's going to continue. There's no guarantees, right?
well, that's not true, right? Nina, I mentioned we do have a results guarantee with this because we know it works, right? So we actually take the risk on our behalf. So as long as you're doing the work, you're letting us know if you need help. After the first 90 days, if you see no results, we'll actually give you a full refund. But so that's just in place. Not that you're going to need it, just for like your own peace of mind, because I know you're going to do great and I'm extremely proud of you. So awesome. Do you know how to share your screen, Nina?
Is it the camera? No.
No, it wouldn't be
Is
the
it
camera.
3 dots?
It
Is it
might
the box with the
with the
arrow
arrow.
in?
So that's pretty much the end of the call. The rest was just walking her through payment and getting the payment from her and then onboarding her as well. And funny thing as well, I thought it was actually before this part of the call, but towards the end of the call after this, she actually said she wants to name a grandkid after me because of our call and how it like had an impact on her. But she said she's not sure if her daughter will be okay with that. But yeah, that's the call. As you can see, total of 1 hour 24 minutes to get the close, and yeah, it was a good call overall. Made a couple mistakes that I can improve on, small things. Obviously, I got the close in the end, but I need to ensure I sharpen up on those things so that for future calls, that could have been the deal breaker for someone else, right? For this person, it was enough to close her, but for someone else, if I make those small slip ups, they might not close, And I feel like I could have also got to the close quicker in objections. I feel like it was very long-winded, but that's something I'm going to work on as well. However, I've came a long way when it comes to like objection handling and stuff like that. Before I was like pretty bad at objection handling, like I'd barely close any calls that gave me objections, but lately I've been closing like a lot. Probably the past 5 calls have all been objections that I've went for like 10, 20, some even 30 minutes long in the pocket, and I got them over the line at the end. So proud of the progress. And you know, one thing this call made me realize, not just this call, also one of the coaching calls I've had recently, it reminded me of what a big impact I'm making on the world, essentially. You know, a part of me was starting to minimize my role and think that I started to view this position as just like a 9 to 5, and I started to feel like not as motivated and like excited to get on calls and, you know, take calls and help people make money, because it started to feel a bit more like a 9 to 5. I mainly got these feelings though when I was like in my losing streak, to be honest, but even before I went in the losing streak, it started to feel a bit more like it's just another job, you know. But after coming to the realization of, you know, it's not just here, I'm not just here to hop on calls, close some deals, make some money, you know, make some good money, but there's a massive ripple effect that I'm a part of on these calls. You know, if we take a look at this person, for example, she struggled with her weight for the past 20 years. That's almost as old as I am. In her body, she's not happy with, she's embarrassed, she's ashamed of. It's holding her back from living the life she wants, and it's also affecting relationships in her life. Right, so me spending this hour and 24 minutes with her, yes, she didn't want to do it right away, but in the grand scheme of things, I helped her because I know it's going to benefit her, and I know it's going to help her become the person she wants to be, the person we spoke about. And that's just not going to benefit her. Firstly, it's going to benefit her extremely, like a lot, right? Because it's going to change her life in so many ways, right? Secondly, it's going to benefit her family, her community, her grandkids. Imagine, that's the sort of impact that I get to be a part of. You know, I'm possibly going to have a small kid running around in America named Angelo, all because I helped this lady, you know. So that realization of, you know, it's not just a job at the end of the day. I'm here to help these people, and I'm really here to transform their lives, because on the other side of the spectrum is, if these people don't change and they live the next 20 years of their life miserable, ashamed, embarrassed, who knows what could happen. You know, they could die unfulfilled, wasted their life. It could lead to them getting divorced, could lead to them committing suicide. You know, pretty deep stuff if you think about it. And yes, obviously that could be like extreme cases, but it's happened before. So a part of me is like extremely proud to be a part of that process and to help these people, prevent them from living their worst possible consequences of not changing, and also start to live their best lives in terms of helping them change, right? So that just basically expanded the fire inside of me to want to actually show up and help these people. And that's why I was able to stay in the pocket for quite some time, like almost 30 minutes in the pocket. Her not wanting to decide, but me still staying there, you know, getting her over the line in the end. And she ended up paying the whole thing in full. She didn't even go for the monthly options. She decided that she'll just pay the full $2,000 with her card. So yeah, that's just a really good call I wanted to share. Really good realization in terms of the impact being made, you know, for someone like me. And if you're someone that's watching this, if you're in sales, like, try not to fall into that trap of just seeing it as like a grind and it's like consuming all your time. Like, remember that, you know, although yes, we're here to make money, like I'm here to hit $20,000 per month, but along the way there's so many lives I'm impacting. like so many countless lives that I'm changing for the better, and I'm providing value to them in an enormous way. And as a result, that's why I get paid well, you know. So awesome stuff, man. It's a good month so far. It's also my birthday month coming up, so my birthday's coming up this month, so I'm extremely proud of the progress I've made so far in terms of my growth, not just on this call, but just in general, like the standard I'm holding up for these people. You know, I'm not really taking bullshit from anyone. You know, they give me excuses, I'm not accepting that. It's either they step up and they follow my standard and take the ownership, or they can leave the call, which has happened to me. You know, just yesterday, the day before yesterday, someone was making a ton of excuses. I work 10 hours a day. I don't have energy to work out. It's stressful because I don't earn a lot of money. Blah, 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 blah. I told him that, okay, well, in a nice way, it is possible for you to do that. There's other people also doing that. So do you feel like you can actually do it even with all those things in place? He says possibly, but I got to be extremely focused. Okay, well, in order to be focused, in order to achieve your goal, if that's what it's going to take, would it be fair to say that it doesn't make sense to blame all these things, that like your life is busy, you're stressful, you don't have energy, and you take the ownership so you can change? And he basically just didn't want to buy in, and then he hung up on me, you know. But although he hung up, I wasn't bothered by it. I wasn't like, oh shit, that could have been a sale if I wasn't so hard on him, you know. But if they can't even handle the first part of the call, how do I expect them to be able to drop $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 at the end of the call if they're just making a ton of excuses from the get-go? You can't, you know. And even if they do pay, that's worse, because then you're going to continue those bad habits, because 1 out of 100 will buy, and then you'll lose so many deals and waste so many time on people like that. But yeah, that's a long rant that I just wanted to share. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one, but I hope you found value in it, and I hope it also inspired some people to, you know, smash life, you know, achieve your goals and live the best life you can live. Life is very short, so make the most of it. And it's up to you to make that decision to do that. Even if things are hard now, doesn't define the future. Don't let your circumstances dictate your future. Don't let it dictate your actions, your beliefs, your behaviors, because if you let it consume you, you're never gonna change. You know, you gotta have the belief in yourself that no matter what the fuck happens to you, you will be fine. You know, and the sooner you come to that reality, the sooner you're gonna have the juice, the motivation, the grit, the determination, the motivation, the willpower to push through. However, that's just having a positive mindset. That's just the first part. You still gotta put the work in. You still gotta take action. You still gotta stop making excuses. You still gotta spend every single waking hour towards changing your life. Because if you're someone right now that's not happy with your life, and you're going through problems and you're going through struggles, if you're wasting your time watching movies, watching Netflix, playing games, doing drugs, partying, the truth is you're satisfied with your life. You may not like it, you may not be happy, but deep down you're comfortable. Because if you are genuinely uncomfortable and you genuinely weren't happy with your situation, you would dedicate every single fucking working hour to changing it. And there would be no excuse and no reason for you not to change it, and no excuse for you not to live the life that you desire. But the first thing is taking ownership and accepting the fact that where you are in life is because of you, nobody else. Yes, bad things could have happened to you, but it's up to you to take that ownership and realize it's still your fault. You could have done better. And yes, that's the past. You can't change that. But if you take ownership of the situation and you understand you are where you are in life because it's your fault, it gives you power of the situation. It gives you the ability to control the outcome because you're the reason it happened. Now you can be the reason it changes. Right? So the first step is taking action. The first step is taking ownership of the situation, right? The second step is actually believing it's actually possible, right? You have to believe you can achieve the goal because beliefs are extremely powerful, right? Your beliefs start up here at a subconscious level, and they determine the behaviors you follow, right? They determine what you do with your day on a day-to-day basis. They determine the opportunities you take or deny. You know, if you genuinely deep down believe you won't be successful, then you won't try your best even when you do have an opportunity to be successful. You won't give it your all. You might tell yourself you're going to, but deep down inside, if you really analyze the situation, you're not even giving it your all. You're not even sticking through it. You're giving up at the first hurdle because your subconscious mind is telling you, what's the point of doing this fucking work if I don't even believe I can achieve this goal? It's a waste of time. So personally believe you can achieve anything in life. And then the thirdly is just take raw fucking action. That's the 3 principles. If you live by those 3 principles, there's no reason you can't achieve any goal that you set out to achieve. Absolutely no reason. Raw action. Meaning raw action is just fucking raw action. Example. If you're someone that's overweight right now, stop telling yourself that you don't have a plan to follow. You don't know what food to eat. You don't have a gym. You don't have time to work out. Stop making excuses. You have a floor. You can do exercise on the floor. You don't know what exercises to do. Just move your body more than you're currently moving your body. Eat less than you're currently eating. Stop eating the junk food. Deep down, you know what you should be doing. And if you really wanted to change, you would change, even if no one's there to help you, because no one's coming to save you. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you're going to be in a position where you actually start living the life you desire. And you need to have those realizations and come to that reality for you, for yourself, for your future family, for your kids, that you can do it. And it's up to you to make that decision. And only you can do that for yourself. So, that was some fire there that I spat, I should say. Hope it helped someone out there. And if you enjoyed this video, I know it was a very long one, but I feel like it was worth it. So if you did actually stick around to the end, I appreciate you, really do. So please drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, if you want to keep up with my journey a bit closer, make sure to follow me on social media. The links will be down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great week.